Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. My name is Mahmoud Al Sarayreh. I've got my PhD from Auckland University of Technology in computer vision, especially in deep learning for hyperspectral images of food applications. Currently, I'm working in AgResearch as a computer scientist in meat quality team. So now I will share my presentation. So today I will talk about deep learning approaches that could be important for food science and its application. So the title of the today's presentation is Teaching Machines About Meat, a Deep Learning Approach. In general, deep learning can be defined as a class of machine learning models that learn self features in a hierarchical way with a high level of data abstraction and complexity and flexibility. In fact, there are several deep learning models for processing raw data with different data structure, such as one-dimensional data structure like signals or spectroscopic data, two-dimensional data structure like RGB images, three-dimensional data structure like hyperspectral images, and data in time series structure like in case of a sequence of images or signals. So convolution neural networks or CNN are the most popular machine intelligence model for handling big and complex data like images in various research areas including food. Regarding analyzing data of food, there are two main approaches. The first one is unsupervised deep learning approach, which means that the ground truth of the data is required to accomplish the learning task. Image classification or object recognition is one of the example of supervised deep learning. In this case, a set of CNN layers is used to extract the image features, and then these features are used to classify the input image into one of the predefined classes or categories. Pixel-wise classification or semantic segmentation is another example of supervised deep learning model aims to classify each pixel in the input image into a class. As we can see in this example, there are several CNN layers with downsampling process to extract the image features, and then there are another set of CNN layers with upsampling process to retrieve the original size of the image. As this kind of model is supervised learning models, one of the main challenges of applying these models on food images is the obtaining of the ground truth data, where in this case, all pixels in the training images need to be manually labeled and annotated. The third example is multitask learning model. In this case, the whole network or model can be designed to predict multiple properties of the input image, which means that the model produce or can produce more than one output at the same time. As we can see in this example, this model can be trained to predict the category of the food image as well as another properties of the product, like the ingredients of the product as a caption on the input image. The second approach is the unsupervised deep learning approach, which means that the ground truth of the data is not required to accomplish the learning task. In fact, this approach is usually used to extract an intelligent representation of the data that can be used to visualize the data, compress the data, or learn the main fault of the data. Stacked autoencoders model is one of the common unsupervised deep learning model. In this model, there are two main models, the encoder network and the decoder network. In case of the decoder, the encoder network, it aims to encode the input data into features in another space, and this space usually simpler and lower dimensions compared with the input data. The decoder network aims at reconstructing the original input from its features. So in this case, the main objective function while training this kind of models is to minimize the reconstruction error between the input and the predicted output. Usually, after training this kind of model, the extracted feature or the learned features can be combined and used with another machine learning model or deep learning model to do a specific supervised task or classification or prediction task. Another example of unsupervised deep learning models is generative adversarial networks or GAN models. In this model, the concept of extracting layered feature is the same as the autoencoder models, while the way of extracting these features is a bit different and tricky. The GAN model consists of two independent models. The first one is the generator model, and the second one is the discriminator model. The generator model is a CNN model to reconstruct an image from a random sampling process from a prior distribution, while the discriminator model aims to classify the reconstructed image into fake image category. So in this case, these two models are trained at the same time with one minimax objective function or error function, which means that the generator tries to minimize the reconstruction error, while the discriminator tries to the maximize the probability of the reconstructed image for being a fake output. Also, it's important to note that GAN models are more robust than autoencoders in terms of the robustness of the extracted feature. However, the training of GAN models is a challenge where in this case an equilibrium point need to be selected to avoid collapsing the generator model. So in this case, collapsing the generator model means that the generator cannot generate any useful images or data. As I mentioned, deep learning is flexible in dealing with many data types and able to process and analyze complex data. So in this presentation, I will go through three examples regarding the application of deep learning on, on meat products. The first application is the adulteration detection in meat product by hyperspectral images and deep CNN models. This model was designed to classify the content of hyperspectral image into three categories or classes. The first class is called lamb for lamb muscles, and another class called other for beef and pork muscle, and the last class for fat region. Also, different conditions on the meat sample were considered while training and evaluating this model, such as fresh meat, frozen meat, and frozen thawed meat. Actually, this model is a good example to show the flexibility of deep learning in analyzing and utilizing hyperspectral data of meat. As we can see, this model processes two different and independent inputs and produce one output. The first input is one-dimensional CNN layers for extracting intelligent features from the mean spectra of meat region, and this region can be interpreted as the feature of the chemical composition of the meat sample. The second input is the 3D CNN layers for extracting spatial features of meat region in the image, and these features can be interpreted as the texture feature of the meat. Then the extracted features of the two inputs are fully connected with a shared layer to extract global features as a unique and robust feature of meat in the image. And these global features are connected to the output layer for performing the classification task. So the performance of the deep learning model was compared with the state-of-the-art machine learning models, such as SVM model. As we can see clearly, the results show that the CNN model significantly outperforms the SVM model in terms of average F score of all classes, and also regarding the overall accuracy of the models. Also, we can note that the CNN model with raw hyperspectral data still outperforms the SVM model, although in the case of SVM model, strong pre-processed steps were used like SNV normalization and handcrafted texture feature extraction. So the visual result also show the significant enhancement of the CNN model, especially as we can see in this classification map, the prediction of the other class or undesired meat types very well classified, which is one of the main objective of the considered case study in adulteration detection. And also we can observe that the CNN model performs well under different conditions on meat samples like fresh, frozen, and thawed meat, and with packing with a plastic bag and without packing. The second application of deep learning model in meat product is red meat authenticity. The main objective of this model is to classify the regions in the hyperspectral images into either lamb, beef, pork, or fat classes. Also, this classification problem can be considered as a fine grain material classification. As we can see in this model, or in the design of this model, or this model designed to go deeper in using 3D CNN layer for joining both spectral and spatial information of meat inside the hyperspectral images. So the model consists of hierarchical structure of CNN layers. These layers are structured as two blocks, and each block has two different 3D CNN layers. Also, 3D max pooling operation were used after each block for downsampling the resulting map from each CNN block. Finally, the feature map of the last CNN layer were flattened into one-dimensional vector and fully connected to a dense layer to extract the final features for performing the classification task by the output layer. So in this application, comprehensively, the CNN model was evaluated on three different hyperspectral imaging systems, and also the performance of the model was compared with the state-of-the-art models in chemometrics and machine learning, like an SVM model and PLS model. The result on high resolution line scanning hyperspectral images with 235 wavelengths show that the CNN model perform well with minor significant compared with the PLS and the SVM model. While in case of low resolution NIR snapshot hyperspectral images with only 25 wavelengths in the NIR range, clearly we can see the significant improvement by the CNN model compared with the other models. So by the visual result, we can observe that both PLS and SVM models produce many misclassified pixels and region in the meat muscle area, while the prediction of the CNN model is very clear from these misclassified region or pixels. The last hyperspectral imaging system is low resolution visible snapshot hyperspectral images with only 16 wavelengths in the visible range. So the result of this model are quite similar to the CNN model on the NIR snapshot images, with more improvement compared with the other model like the BLS model and the SVM model. So the general overview of this evaluation and this result show that the CNN model provide better understanding of meat information in the image, although the decrease in the spectral information as in case of snapshot hyperspectral images. And also, unlike the CNN model, the PLS model and SVM model are highly affected with the amount of spectral information in the image. For example, in case of line scanning images, both PLS and SVM provide a competitive results, while in case of snapshot images, the accuracy of this model was significantly decreased and affected. For more investigating, the extracted feature of meat by the CNN model can be visualized by principal component analysis. First, the PCA scores of the raw NIR snapshot spectra of meat show that the wavelengths, as we can see, the wavelengths are highly correlated, and all sample appear as a one or two clusters in the PCA space. While in case of uh, the CNN features, the BCA scores of the CNN features show that the CNN model is able to convert raw spectral spatial data into a useful representation in another space with a good separation between the classes or meat types, as we can see in this figure. So the third application of deep CNN models on meat products is foreign object inspection. For simulating foreign object uh, inspection in meat product, commercially meat cuts were collected from local New Zealand supermarkets, and then these products were contaminated by several material as foreign object. For example, soft and hard plastic, transparent plastic, metal material, and glasses with different shape and size. As we can see in this figure, the CNN model processes the whole hyperspectral image as input and produce bounding boxes around the detected object in the input image. So the output of this model is a bounding boxes around the foreign object in the image. So in fact, this model is a combination of several CNN modules and operations. So the first module is region proposal module or RPN module to generate set of candidate regions with a certain probability of being foreign object. Then a filtering rules or module were used to remove any noise candidate from the prediction of the previous module, which is RPN module. And finally, a classification module was used to classify the remaining candidate into either normal region or abnormal region as a foreign objects. And actually, the performance of this model was evaluated, and the accuracy or the model provide good accuracy in terms of detection and localizing the foreign object in the image with an average precision of 81% on a totally independent set of meat cuts and foreign object. Regarding the speed of the detection and localization of this model, the model provides promising result for potential real-time processing in meat industry with a runtime of 1.5 second per image, which is a good for meat industry. These are set of these are visual results of a set of hyperspectral images of meat samples and object used to visualize the model, and also for final evaluation a totally new set of hyperspectral images of meat samples and object were used, as we can see in both these images. So I will zoom a little bit just to make it clear. As we can see in these images or examples, the model accurately can detect and localize the foreign object in the image, although the change in the meat sample, the type of meat, and the shape of the meat cut, and also while changing the foreign object shape and size and positioning in the image. Also, we can note that the area of muscles and background are free from any detection, which means that the CNN model provides a good understanding of what is the normal regions in the meat product and what is the abnormal region in the meat product. As a quality control evaluation, the propagation of false positives and false negatives in the prediction were analyzed to evaluate the performance of the model from practical perspectives. As we can see, the results are good for all meat types, especially for beef product. However, the detection of glass material or objects and the transparent objects was not accurate and highly affected the overall accuracy of the model. As we can see in these two examples, there are some foreign objects are not detected because they are glass or transparent. In case of inspecting object with similar visual properties of meat, the model show good prediction, which reflect the ability of the model in utilizing the spectral information in hyperspectral images. As we can see in these examples or these meat samples, the model accurately can detect these objects while they are difficult or visually difficult to be recognized, which means that the model util- utilizing the spectral information provided by the hyperspectral images. So for visualization and interpretation purposes, the feature map of the CNN model were extracted and then plotted to investigate what kind of feature that the model was learned after completing the learning task. For example, if we have the following image, and if we feed this image to the CNN model, these are the resulting feature maps. As we can see in these images or feature maps, the objects or the foreign object were highlighted in different way, such as by the spectra or the intensity, and also by the edges and the shape, and also by the surface information. And also we can observe that the feature maps highlighted the difference between the meat cut and the background regions in the image. For example, if we look at the last set of feature map, I mean the CNN block 3, clearly we can observe that the model used a kind of surface information to differentiate between the muscle area and the object area. So finally, for more detail regarding the content of this presentation, these references provide details information about the application of deep learning on meat and food products. So thank you so much for your attention, and if you have any comments or questions regarding the content of this presentation, please feel free to contact me by this email.